Please rise in body or in spirit. Please be seated. Good afternoon and welcome to this space that is sacred in and of itself and made more so by the various and treasured connections that we share to Judith Steller, who graced this world for 86 years and left a legacy of expansive love and generosity, private and public service. In the months that have followed Judy's long goodbye and peaceful death, I have had the pleasure of 3 delicious conversations with her husband Bob and their son Chris. Each time they left my office, it felt a little brighter and warmer, as if the telling of the stories of Judy's life and the life of their family had created its own kind of spiritual energy and sacred space. May today's celebration of Judy's well-completed life, your presence as her friends and family over time, the sharing of stories and music, some time to reflect and gather the threads of conversation in our time of fellowship, serve to create a collective memory that will continue to inspire us all far into the future. We kindle now the flame of our chalice, symbol of the Unitarian Universalist faith tradition, whose values and spirit were voiced in the life of Judith Steller. A note that the music that is in this service today is all connected to Judy. Ahmed's Prelude was a piece that Judy was working on when she went back to piano lessons after her retirement. The opening hymn is a favorite of Judy's family, and we're going to be closing with If I Had a Hammer, which was one of the many Pete Seeger songs that the Stellers sang and listened to as a family. So please join with me now, rise in body or in spirit, for the singing of My Life Goes On in Endless Song, number 108 in the hymnals in your pew rack. Please be seated. I offer these words the Reverend Kathleen McTeague. They are with us still. In the struggles we choose for ourselves, in the ways we move forward in our lives and bring our world forward with us, it is right to remember the names of those who gave us strength in this choice of living. It is right to name the power of hard lives well lived. We share a history with those lives. We belong to the same motion. They too were strengthened by what had gone before. They too were drawn by a vision of what might come to be. Those who lived before us, who struggled for justice and suffered injustice before us, have not melted into dust and have not disappeared. They are with us still. The lives that they live hold us steady. Their words remind us and call us back to ourselves. Their courage and love evoke our own. We, the living, carry them with us. We are their voices, their hands, and their hearts. We take them with us, and with them choose the deeper path of living. Let us share together a moment of silence. Let us pray. Holy One, source of radiance and reason, we give thanks for every gift of life that brings us joy, peace, and strength of heart. For every person whose life speaks to us words of hope and affirmation, and especially for Judith Steller, in whose memory we gather today. We are grateful for her vibrant presence that helped expand our knowledge of ourselves and the world, quickened our imaginations, enlarged our sympathies, and taught us the meaning of love and community. We remember in this hour the people who surround us, the loved ones with whom we share the essentials of life, the friends who stand by us, and multitude of unknown persons whose labor meets our needs and by whose severe duty we are made secure. We hold in our minds and hearts the needs and sorrows of others, as well as our own needs and sorrows, seeking that we may know the places of healing and grace. We would learn to accept even the hard things which we have known and suffered, mysteries of pain and sickness and even of death. We pray that we may gain from them a truer sense of direction for the days ahead. We would fashion from our grief and sadness a song of praise and celebration for the goodness of life, that our love for Judy, who has gone before us, may be witnessed, renewed, and strengthened in our love for others. May we extend to the world the legacy of light and love which Judy so abundantly offered and bestowed. In the name of all holiness and wonder, we pray this day. Amen. Now, I would like to invite two of Judy's grandchildren up to share a couple of remembrances.
Hello. My name is Stefan Lund. My cousin Ben Steller and I are two of Judy's 5 grandchildren. We'd like to take a moment to share with you some favorite memories of Bob's on behalf of him, some favorite memories about Judy's life. I will share a short story with you about her political advocacy and her support for mental health, and then Ben will share a slightly lighter story about driving down to Tucson. As many of you may know, Senator Paul Wellstone, like Judy, was a committed advocate for mental health parity, the requirement that health insurance cover behavioral health and physical health. While working on his last campaign, Judy became friends with a woman who was helping manage Wellstone's campaign, specifically the finances. And unfortunately, after Wellstone's death, Judy lost track of her friend. But 2 years later, in the embryonic days of Howard Dean's presidential run, Judy got a call from her old friend. She was now working for Howard Dean, and she asked whether there was any chance that Judy and Bob could put up Dean in their own home while he made his first visit of his campaign to Minnesota. They said sure, although they were just arriving back from their nephew's wedding in Georgia, and so they, just hours before Dean was to arrive, and so they cleaned sheets, they replaced the storm windows, they cleaned the bathroom, and so Dean stayed with them, and some months later he stayed with them again. By that point he was more confident, full of stories about his swing through California, and things were looking surprisingly hopeful. Soon, the campaign was raising enough money that they could put Dean up in hotels. And so Judy and Bob's campaign B&B came to an end. But they were Dean fans, and Judy stayed in touch with her friend in his campaign. And so because of that connection, Judy got a call late one afternoon from a staffer who was working on Dean's healthcare platform. The staffer asked Judy, would you take a look at the mental health care section? And by the way, they're rolling it out tomorrow. Judy said sure, and Howard Dean's draft healthcare policy appeared in an email. So Judy and Bob read it over together, and Judy was appalled. It was weak and, in a couple cases, wrong. And so they skipped dinner, and they rewrote large chunks of the mental health care platform. Judy dictated while Bob sat wordsmithing at the computer. And so they sent this revised version back to the Dean campaign at about 10 p.m. And the next day, they announced this healthcare platform, and Judy's changes and contributions were almost entirely incorporated. Judy was a hopeful and strong Judy was now hopeful that strong support of mental health might one day find its way into the White House. But as many of us remember, Howard Dean's campaign imploded in Iowa. So Judy went back to lobbying the Minnesota congressional delegation, and eventually that work paid off. Judy lived to see a series of acts of Congress that increasingly established mental health parity as the law of the land. Thank you.
Next, I'm going to share a brief story regarding traveling with Judy. Judy and Bob loved to travel together to faraway places like Kazakhstan and Ecuador, but also the 1,800 miles back and forth to Tucson. On Bob and Judy's trips to Tucson, they shared the driving pretty much equally. until the last trip in 2019 when Bob did most of the driving. They even enjoyed the long, boring miles, with the exception of the stretch from western Oklahoma across the Texas Panhandle into New Mexico. Judy did those long stretches. She didn't much like cruise control. Bob did the cities: Des Moines, Kansas City, Oklahoma City, Amarillo, Albuquerque, or taking the Colorado route, Santa Fe, Denver, and Omaha. They had a list of all the public radio stations between here and Tucson and spent frustrating minutes trying to tune them in. Otherwise, it was conservative talk radio or non-Unitarian religious programming. They found this interesting, in small doses. They tried to listen to audiobooks, but the non-driver tended to doze, so that they were often at different points in their story. The non-driver then gave up on the book, gave in to dozing, and watched for odd names along the way. There are a surprising number of skunk creeks. They talked and talked, their history and plans. At least once a day, they listened to and sang from the Great American Songbook along with Ella Fitzgerald, Ladies That Lunch, 10 Cents a Dance, My Funny Valentine, I've Got You Under My Skin, etc. Before smartphones, they used McDonald's Wi-Fi to book motels. Their sons kept reminding them that they didn't really have to stay at Motel 8. But since they drove late and got up early, eager to get to their destination, they chose cheap motels, as long as they had free breakfast. They could count on grits and gravy with oil workers when they stayed near Amarillo. Sometimes they planned to stop overnight in southern New Mexico and drive the last couple hundred miles in the morning. But with Tucson just over the horizon, they usually headed on into the dark. One such time, they encountered an unexpected and terrifying thunderstorm. Hail mixed with rain, windshield wipers useless, trucks ahead and behind. When they emerged from the storm, the Tucson mileage signs had become encouraging, and soon they saw the city's lights in the sky. After exiting the interstate, they were just 25 miles from their townhouse, home. There, they hauled inside whatever was necessary for the night, brushed their teeth, and fell into bed. Their journey together accomplished. Thank you.
energy, caring, commitment, and joy. These are the words that Bob Steller identified to anchor this celebration of Judy's life, so generously and creatively lived. All except joy, he noted, had their downsides, running out of energy, over commitment, caring that crowds out joy and sometimes saps energy. In the 60s and the 70s, the word multitasking had not found its way into the parlance of real life, but Judy had seen it from an early age as she witnessed and supported her mother's work outside their home. Her family, her husband Bob and their sons Chris and Tim, and families they formed with their own spouses and children, did in turn witness and support her as she mostly cheerfully multitasked her way to a PhD while working and co-raising her two sons, built and maintained a private practice, labored over case notes and preparations for clients, and managed the nitty-gritty of billing and writing letters and so on. Her creative energy drew her into professional groups into which she threw herself with enthusiasm and commitment. She brought the same energy into her political activities, as you heard earlier, lobbying for mental health parity and campaigning for liberal candidates. And interspersed and somehow a different kind of priority, she made time for games and cookie baking with her own and other children and grandchildren, all with the idea of creating fun and companionship. Her home improvement projects created space for friends and family and strangers who became friends, in the making whom she welcomed with generous hospitality. Judy's sense of commitment was most apparent in her perseverance. She stuck with projects and she stuck with people. At her work, she was known to have long-time clients. A note in a Christmas card from one of Judy's patients seems to sum up her impact as a therapist. Quote, "One of the many things I've learned these past few years is to see the joy in my life as well as the pain, and to appreciate them both. I no longer envision only disappointment and frustration and separateness. I am able to recall happy moments with my family, personal victories that I have won, the inspirational words of my favorite writers, and the little things that have made me feel good. These new discoveries have been crucial, and I am so grateful that you have restored me to the happiness and peace I thought I had lost forever." As noted earlier, Judy's passions extended beyond the personal and into the political. Her most persistent cause, as mentioned, was getting health insurance plans to cover behavioral health. Judy never really quit on this issue. Her insistence actually led to a falling out with Hillary Clinton. In a receiving line at the Mayo Clinic after Hillary had been presenting the Clinton healthcare plan, Judy said that she hoped that mental health parity was going to be part of the plan, and according to Judy, Hillary sniffed and said, "All in good time." Not the answer Judy wanted to hear. It was not possible thereafter for anyone to convince Judy to do anything more for Hillary than to vote. The list of Judy's activities and accomplishments is long and noted in the lovely piece that her family prepared for the order of service, which you will take from this celebration. The stories that will be shared in our collage of voices and in the rest of this service will provide splashes of color and texture in the tapestry of Judy's life. Woven in are memories of persistent and gracious welcoming hordes of young boys, friends of their boys into the house, tolerating teenagers with amusement and love, supporting and comforting children and grandchildren when they had troubles, physical, emotional, and psychological. The exchange students from Norway and the Netherlands, China and Japan, grad students and wife from Kazakhstan, and their friends, short-term delegates from the Faroe Islands, Belarus, Russia, and Moldova. And of course, always family and friends. Judy learned in her childhood, with her childhood family, how family cares for each other. Learned at Southeast Cooperative Nursery School how to care for other people's children. Learned in assertiveness training how to care for herself. And there will always be music. Always the memory of singing and listening and appreciating. Music both in the making and hearing committed, happy piano playing, choir, and other singing groups, singing with kids and grandkids. And most important, as we try to recreate this picture, this extraordinary tapestry of the life of Judy Steller, held in common memory, we recognize that she was one whose way of being in the world invited and created joy. This is the legacy that will sustain us all in the years to come. It is a tradition at Unity Church to invite friends and families to submit memories and stories to be joined in a collage of voices as a part of a memorial celebration. In all cases, these submissions are rich in story and reflection, and in the interest of time, we have done some editing. Please know that all of the original offerings will be returned to the family in their entirety. And thanks to all of you who made contributions, and to Rebecca Flood, who will be sharing this reading with me. But first, oh no, there's no first. This is it.
So this is from Judy's brother, Jim Bavis. Jim is Judy's only brother and 3 years her junior. Here are a few remembrances of their early days together as the children of Bernice and Harry Bavis, growing up in the small town of Bowling Green, Ohio, at that time a population of about 10,000 people. During those years, we played the roles that really could have been on a reality TV series, but TV and reality series weren't invented yet. Playing the prototypical role of the heartless, dominating big sister versus the sweet but difficult younger brother. But seriously, in her elementary school years, in her efforts to take care of me and persuade me to be mature, Judy was exhibiting the first signs of the talented, resourceful, curious, well-organized, highly motivated, unselfish, and hard-working person that would be exhibited in her achievements in the many roles she so successfully played in later years. She showed me all of those traits, plus love and compassion, even in her early years. Our childhood was unique in that our mother was about the only mother we knew in our hometown who worked outside of the home during many of our childhood years. I can recall that Mom went back to work because she felt that she could count on Judy at a very early age to babysit me during summer, weekdays, and after school. Judy had the responsibility of making sure we were both safe in our house, in the yard, and in our elementary school, and oftentimes I did not enjoy her control over my life. Yet I knew I was counting on her common sense and maturity beyond her years to protect and guide me. I can vividly recall incidences where I think Judy saved my life during these early years, with both Mom and Dad at work and Judy in charge. For example, I was playing in our front yard in my bare feet. I inadvertently stepped on a bee and was suddenly stung on the bottom of that bare foot. I had often been cautioned by Mom and Dad to avoid bees because they could sting and injure us very badly, and I truly believed that survival from such an incident was not guaranteed. And now look, I'd been stung, it hurt, and I suspected that very soon I would die. Stories from Judy about having the bee giving up their life by stinging me were of very little solace. With great speed and relative calmness, Judy called Mom at work and followed Mom's instructions for treating my bee sting and removing the bee stinger from my foot. Somehow, with Judy's great help, I survived the great bee sting incident. I was also witnessing Judy's calmness and coolness under pressure that served her well her entire life and was a great model for me.
Jim continues. When Judy was 12 years old, her doctors discovered that she had scoliosis. X-rays revealed that her spine had a double curve so that it was shaped much like an S. As a result, it was strongly recommended that she have surgery to try to straighten the spine to avoid being crippled later in life. Unfortunately, the surgery would have to take place at the Cleveland's University Hospital, with many weeks of hospitalization at the Cleveland's Rainbow Children's Hospital. Rainbow Hospital was more than a 4-hour drive from our home in Bowling Green, and Julie was very young to be away from home and family. Mom worked, and Dad had 2 jobs at this time, but they drove the 3 of us to Cleveland to be with Judy as many weekends as we could that year. Young Judy was alone in a strange place without family nearby and facing serious surgery. As a 9-year-old, when we visited Judy at Rainbow Hospital, I was not allowed to visit her in her room, so I had to sit in the waiting room, sometimes for hours, while my parents visited her. However, the receptionist took a liking to me and knew how much I missed Judy, so occasionally she violated the rules by allowing me to sneak around behind the hospital and climb through a window to see and talk to Judy. There was a local radio announcer in Cleveland, Doc Lemon was his name, who had a morning program on which he played wake up and drive to work music from about 4 a.m. to about 8 a.m. every weekday. He had the practice of identifying a young child who was sick and perhaps hospitalized and tried to persuade his listeners to pray for them and to send get-well cards. Somehow, he identified Judy's plight, and for many weeks, he gave reports on her progress and her mailing address. So Judy received hundreds of get-well cards and letters from the audience, all of which she read and absorbed. Of course, my parents were very smitten by this effort, so every morning for weeks, we had the radios on all over the house at 4 a.m. Turned to the Doc Lemon Show. It was an additional constant reminder of how tenacious and brave Judy was, even at age 12. During this period, again at a very early age, Judy showed enormous maturity, patience, and courage, and faith in the medical profession that served as a model for me and every other child in our home who was aware of her situation. Decades later, Judy carried her love of children through the generations of her own family. We continue now with the voices of some of those children.
This is from her granddaughter, Livia Lund. One really special way I connected with Grandma was through writing letters while they were there in Arizona in the winter. As a kid, it felt really exciting to have something addressed just to you, especially when people don't write letters often anymore. I would give updates about school and friends, and I would hear about what birds were visiting their patio and what activities they were doing with the Arizona cousins. Every week when the card arrived, both sides would be filled with her distinctive cursive handwriting. All together, these words showed its dedicated and genuine interest in her grandchildren and our lives, and how she made us feel really special. I always associate Grandma with music, whether it was singing or playing the piano. Indeed, Grandma really encouraged my own piano playing, and even we had the same teacher, Antonia, a somewhat intense Bulgarian woman, at the MacPhail Center for Music in Minneapolis. Grandma always insisted that Antonia really liked me, which honestly was a surprise to me since I didn't always get that impression. Grandma taking music lessons really impressed upon me the power of lifetime learning, as I didn't really realize as a kid that adults could take music lessons too. Also, Wednesday afternoons when my brothers and I visited after school were such an important part of my childhood. A very full grandkid curated experience. I can remember gathering baskets of raspberries in the backyard and presenting my gifts proudly, triumphantly, playing infinite games of cards, spite and malice being a very favorite, and doing crossword puzzles together. From dropping stuffed animals down the mysterious laundry chute, a magical invention to a child, to playing games of tennis against the garage door, the house was filled to the brim with activities and excitement.
And from grandson Stefan Lund, Judy was always trying to convince me to talk to my college professors more and take art history classes. I was resistant to this advice, partly due to not wanting to take an art history class with anyone who would go to Oberlin, but did end up taking such a class while studying abroad and loved it. Talking to my professors more later in college got me into a good PhD program, so her advice was definitely right. Judy, along with Bob, did a lot to try to make her home a welcoming space for the grandkids. Dedicated personal arts and crafts baskets, ongoing projects, Lego, Harry Potter Castle, state quarter collecting, favorite foods, cinnamon rolls and sloppy joes, and outside activities included ball games and old plastic playhouse in the back. I remember being surprised soon after they moved into their La Rive condo how thoroughly Judy had thrown herself into fighting new construction in the area. The move was such an exhausting process, they being retired, I had just kind of figured that they'd take an opportunity to chill out. But she was gung-ho about fighting City Hall, It was jarring honesty because I was being a cynical 21-year-old, certain that the city and the development would do what they were going to do. But she had hope and passion and righteous anger.
This is from her grandson, Gabe Steller. Honestly, the first thing that comes to mind was simply her generosity and genuine excitement over whatever new life development or passion was gripping us at the time. Sharing with her as you sat across the kitchen aisle, she would get this wonderful, bright look in her eyes, ready to match your enthusiasm. And it's that look that came immediately to mind when I first sat down to write this. She was always generous with her thoughts and her time, and had an enthusiasm for all good things in life: laughter, music, art, ideas, and a really good soup. But most of all, with her eclectic Soviet posters and Central Asian art, hosting foreign students and progressive candidates, and keeping up with her Russian lessons deep into our childhood, she imbued the world with a sense of possibility. For her, there were so many people to meet, beautiful things to see, and places to learn about. She had an appreciation for the richness and the variety in the world, and with her grandkids, she seemed excited to see how we might add to it.
Now just a few more pieces of our collage of voices offered by longtime friends. From Jean Camero, Judy and I met in graduate school at the University of Minnesota in the early to mid-1970s. This meant that we knew each other for close to 50 years. Here was a woman in graduate school who was working, raising 2 elementary-age sons, was active in her community, had a wonderful husband, Bob, and was smart, funny, and up on things. We both had scoliosis. I wanted to be just like Judy. We were in a dissertation support group to help us all get through the process in our counseling and student personnel psychology program, all women in what was a man's world of higher education then. And we made it through. Judy used her PhD to become a successful therapist in private practice. No matter what the issue or diagnosis, she worked to help everyone improve their mental health using both empathy and toughness.
And this is my own remembrance of Judy. In 1984, I began seeing Judy as my therapist. As a lesbian, I sought her out in order to sort through coming out to my parents. At that time, several of my friends who did come out were rejected, kicked out of their families. One of my friends was even sent to conversion therapy. It was a frightening time, but my relationship with my spouse, Ruth, was serious, and we had just bought a house together. Since my folks loaned us the money for the down payment, they wanted to come and see what they helped us buy. And I realized I just couldn't lie about Ruth in our home. I couldn't pretend that she was just my roommate. Judy helped me work through all of that. She helped me develop an authentic relationship with my parents. She listened as I cried my way through many of our sessions, helping me wrestle with my fear. With her kind and tender care, she helped me find a path through. I am forever ever grateful to her. She saved my life, really.
And from artist Storm Matheson, having the Stellers as my American family has been a gift in life for me. I have been looking through pictures from our times together and feel rich by all our shared memories. I was very lucky to arrive in your family and have Judy as my American mother. She always made me feel welcome, safe, and cared for, like a daughter. I knew that she went to great lengths to arrange things to happen for me to have a good experience, to-do lists in preparation for everything so they would go smoothly. Her strength, loving concern, ways of doing critical reflection, and seeing and acting in the world around her. I learned so much, and I'm forever grateful for the warmth, generosity, and love that my family and I have received from Judy and the memories of the time and many things we got to share.
This is from Ann Hawkins. I have shared so many adventures and happy times with Judy and her family since our first meeting outside Durham Castle in 1980. The connection was instant, and it has been a privilege to be a part of Judy Steller and Bob Bavis's family for all these years. On trips to the UK, we visited so many places, the gardens in Cornwall and in Bridgeport in Dorset, to where our shared family lived. All these adventures were always combined with good games. I took Pictionary home to England long before it arrived there, and wonderful music, the most memorable being my introduction to Pete Seeger, and Judy telling me the story of when she met him whilst he was in hiding during the 1950s. This was all part of the warm welcome, the good humor, and fun that Judy and her family created.
And for Marty Rossman, My 60-year friendship with Judy generated many wonderful memories. One reflection is when we were both pregnant and headed off with our husbands on a 3-week camping trip to the West Coast with 2 Army pup tents on top of our new Nash Rambler. The trip showed Judy's fun spirit and resilience, especially when a skunk peeked into their tent. On the way to Seattle, we picked a restaurant, Les Tigel, or Le Tigel. Judy prided herself in the study of languages and was sure the place would be French. She speculated for miles that the word Tigel meant what it meant. We all laughed and laughed when it turned out that it was a steakhouse that was named for Les Tigel.
This is from Joan and Ted Hular. Judy graced our lives for some 60-plus years, a joy throughout. Judy was a special lady, self-effacing, sharp of mind, quick to clarify a point, contributing always. She was generous in so many ways, never negative, always quizzical, always welcoming and warm. Her loss leaves a deep void, but she has left us with the treasured memories of shared meals, car and train trips, and enlightened conversation.
And we close this collage of voices with the voice of Judy and Bob's son, Tim. It kind of sums it up. The words dissertation and advisor floated around the house for a few years when I was a kid. Who knew what they really meant, other than that Mom was gone more often, meeting at the university or working at the VA hospital. It all came to a big conclusion on a Saturday when we cleaned up all day, and at night lots of people came over. It was a party dash. It was a party. Her PhD was done, and from now on, she was Dr. Steller. I looked down on the party from the big stairway landing at 523 7th Street Southeast, not sure what it all meant, but glad she did it. She did it over and over. When she needed spinal surgery as a kid, she did it. When she had a chance to be the first in her family to graduate from college, she did it. When she went for a PhD in psychology, she did it. And when she knew she had unknown relatives in England, she found them, and they became lifelong friends. She did it. When Aryan from Kazakhstan came to town, she got him on TV. She eventually helped him to get into graduate school. She did it. When she wanted to lead the Minnesota Psychological Association, she rose from position to position, lobbying in Washington and Minnesota. Eventually, she did it. Of course, much of what she did was in partnership with Dad. They did things together. But this unstoppable, sometimes crazy-making driving force was my mom. And I close with this section with these words from Ruth Palmer. I will always remember Judy's warm and precious and generous presence, good humor, gentle chuckle, and singing enthusiasm. Her memory sings on. I'll just stay right here. Well, this we know. All life is a gift. Judy Steller's life was a gift. It is almost possible to sum it up in Bob's categories: energy, commitment, caring, and joy, expressed in determination, vision, passion, playfulness, kindness, enthusiasm, qualities that can be experienced both as inspiring and, I dare say, at times a bit intimidating. At best, the presence of such qualities of being help us to access them in ourselves, to move us to find those ways to engage the world with our own life energy. Clearly, Judy was possessed of a life force that tapped into and released the energy of others. She is alive in the world of living memory and encouraging us still. Though we will miss Judy's unique expression of this life force, and you will honor her memory in your own best expressions of those qualities that you shared. In the days ahead, and in her honor, and in gratitude for the life left in your own time, I invite you to recommit to a cause or passion. Be a light for change. Offer care to a loved one. Welcome a stranger. Make plans, make a list, make a memory with someone you love. Make music like no one is listening. Stand calm in the face of crisis. Play a game with a child and never count the loss. And in any of this, claim the joy of your own life, well lived, in the company of the likes of Judith Steller. So may it be so.
You've got words in your program, sing along with us. Why don't we just stand and sing it out loud?
Judy Bavis Steller, who came before us, we offer gratitude and thanks. May her memory be a blessing. May we feel surrounded by her love. As we go forth from this time and place, let us be inspired by her courage, her wisdom, and her dreams. Let us honor her by doing the work of living boldly, loving mightily, and creating heaven on earth. Amen.